Number 4. World War II plane wreck, Jake Seaplane. The Republic of Palau is an island country located in the Western Pacific. The nation consists of roughly 340 islands and has a total land area of about 180 square miles. Today, Palau is mostly known for its exquisite scenery and world-famous shark diving. But during World War II, the island played an extremely important role. The war over predominance in the area between the Japanese and the Americans was mostly fought in the air. But Palau was situated in the perfect location to protect the regions in Southeast Asia that were already occupied. The Japanese forces were swiftly defeated by the more powerful U.S. Air Force, and as a result, their supply ships were left unprotected and open to being attacked from above. In order to completely neutralize the enemy threat, the Americans ordered a series of airstrikes on the vulnerable Japanese fleet. In the midst of the attack, the over 60 ships were sunk off the coast of Palau. Numerous planes from both sides were shot down and were consequently lost at sea. One of the most notable plane wrecks that can be found here is the famous Jake Seaplane. The wreck was first discovered in 1994 by a fisherman who noticed the plane's metallic remains from the surface. The plane sits upright on top of a coral head underneath about 49 feet of water. The Jake was the Japanese Navy seaplane believed to be one of the aircrafts that was shot down during the conflict in the skies above Palau. The aircraft is approximately 36 feet long, with a wingspan stretching almost 50 feet. It served as a slow-moving reconnaissance plane and also was given the code name Jake by the Allies. Because it's been underwater for so long, it's almost entirely overgrown with marine life. While most of the craft is intact, part of the wing pontoon as well as the tail section of the plane has completely detached from the rest of the structure, but the pieces can be found just a short distance away. The engine has also dislodged itself and now rests on the seafloor nearby. The World War II aeroplane serves as a reminder of the brutal conflict between the Japanese and the Americans. And over the years, this wreck has become a rather popular dive site for tourists and adventurous history buffs. The Jake is fairly easy to get to for new divers and is surrounded by a variety of coral, such as staghorn, lettuce, brain, and table corals. The underwater scene is also a perfect place to take pictures since there are no major currents in the area. Number 3. The ancient city of Dwarka. The ancient city of Dwarka is recognized in Hindu culture as the beautiful city of Krishna. According to Hindu writings, Krishna, the god of compassion, protection, and love, left Earth in order to become one with the spirit world. Once the deity was gone, the age of Kali began, and the city of Dwarka and all of its inhabitants were supposedly buried beneath the sea. However, many interpret this legend to be the story of a tsunami that wiped out an entire civilization, similar to the one that struck India in 2004. Unlike the legend, some parts of the city survived the natural disaster and they remain sacred Hindu towns today. But since the 1930s, excavations have been carried out in order to find the lost sections of Dwarka. Between 1983 and 1990, archaeologists uncovered a fortified foundation beneath the waters of the Arabian Sea. They believe this to be the location that the ancient city walls were once built along the banks of the river. Among the rubble, they also found pillars, stone blocks used for construction, and evidence of irrigation systems. It's still up for debate at the moment, but researchers believe that these vestiges were created between 3000 and 1500 BC. Several anchors made of stone were discovered in the area as well, at the same depth of about 20 feet. This suggests that the submerged part of the city was once involved in trade between Indian and Arabic regions throughout the 15th and 18th centuries. If this is true, Dwarka was almost certainly an important trading port in the distant past. Carrying out excavations in this part of the sea is extremely difficult and is only possible between November and February, which is during low tide. The sea has to be calm and ample sunlight is required so the divers can effectively see what's in front of them. This leaves only 40 to 45 possible diving days for researchers each season. Because of this, teams with the Marine Archaeological Unit of the Archaeological Survey of India began to use echo sounding in order to get an accurate depth of objects they discovered under the water. The team, led by Dr. S.R. Rao, one of the most renowned archaeologists in India, conducted various excavations on this site after it was first discovered back in 1963. However, the fortified foundation was not unearthed by them until the late 1980s. Research fizzled for quite some time, but several years later in 2007, the Underwater Archaeology Wing of the ASI started to study the lost city of Dwarka once again. This time around, they found underwater structures below the Arabian Sea. However, Alok Tripathi with the UAW was hesitant to describe them as remnants of a temple or a wall because there wasn't much left of them. But the most fascinating finds came in 2001, when National Institute of Oceanography students were commissioned by the government of India to complete a survey on pollution in the Gulf of Kambat, several miles from the shore. During this survey, the students found stone buildings covered in sand and mud along a stretch of 5 square miles. The divers collected samples from the structures, and they also discovered copper coins from the site, which have been dated to roughly 3,600 years old. Some of the samples were carbon dated by Manipur and Oxford University, which estimated some of the objects to be around 9,000 years old. The researchers concluded that what they unearthed was an underwater archaeological site that was likely constructed around 7500 BC, which makes this area under the Gulf of Kambat one of the oldest sites of civilization found anywhere on the planet. The relics and structures uncovered by these marine expeditions were scattered randomly over a vast area along the seafloor, suggesting they have been submerged for a long time. They've likely been carried further and further away from where they originally fell over the years by strong underwater currents. But it's widely believed that the remains have been discovered in this area belong to the lost city of Dwarka, the alleged dwelling place of the legendary Krishna from Hindu mythology. What's the craziest thing you've ever found underwater? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, hit that subscribe button. At number 2, Mediterranean sea monster. In 2017, a deep-sea diver working in the oil and gas industry stumbled across the skeleton of a mysterious 100-foot-long sea monster at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. The discovery was completely random for the unnamed diver. They had been piloting a remote-operated vehicle at a depth of about 2,723 feet beneath the surface when they noticed the giant skeleton resting on the seafloor. The oil worker was unable to identify the creature, so they sent the video they had recorded of the sea monster to Deborah Hatswell, a paranormal investigator. In the recording of the deep-sea encounter, the diver tries to grab onto one of the vertebrae of the skeleton, but it's so brittle that even the slightest touch turns the bone to dust. The vertebral column of the sea monster was discovered lying in an almost perfectly straight line. Towards the end of the skeleton, there was another set of larger bones which appeared to be the animal's pelvis. When Hatswell received the diver's footage, she was shocked because she was unable to identify the species. In an interview with the Daily Star, Hatswell explained that the dimensions of the skeleton do not fit with the usual size for sea life in the area. Most of the marine animals she compared the remains to were nowhere near the same size. She ruled out the possibility of the creature being a whale because of the features on the skeleton's vertebrae do not match what you'd usually find in the remains of a whale. The sea monster couldn't have been an oarfish either, since they're only known to grow to a maximum of 26 feet. The deep-sea diver who first recorded this giant skeleton believes that based on their past discoveries, this creature could have far more ancient origins. After Deborah posted the clip of the sea monster on her own YouTube channel, she was flooded with comments from those trying to identify it. Some speculated that the skeleton could belong to a Tylosaurus, a huge predatory marine reptile that lived during the late Cretaceous period, roughly 85 million years ago. Others offered more mundane explanations, saying it could just be the decomposed remains of a large hammerhead shark. However, to this day, no one has been able to accurately identify the exact species of the skeleton. The bones were far too fragile to bring back to the surface for any type of thorough investigation. It seems like this is a mystery that will remain unsolved. Whatever the giant creature is, it serves as a reminder that over 80% of the Earth's oceans are still unexplored, and there may just be more mysteries waiting in the deepest parts of the sea, waiting to be discovered. And at number 1, underwater rivers. Hidden far beneath the surface of the Black Sea, there are underwater rivers made of sediment that flow thousands of miles from land. The existence of these rivers were discovered in the late 1980s when researchers used sonar mapping to get a clearer picture of the seafloor. These mysterious rivers were quite an astonishing revelation at the time, since nothing like them had ever been found or even thought of beforehand. The river below the Black Sea cascades through steep underwater gorges, and they churn around secluded rock towers before traveling across a boundless plain beyond. This deep-sea marvel can be compared to the Colorado River, which carved out the famous Grand Canyon in Arizona. However, this fascinating natural wonder has never been visited by tourists, and you won't find it on any map because it's situated 2 miles below the surface of the ocean. Over millions of years, the Monterey Canyon in California has slowly been shaped by one of these amazing undersea rivers. Just past the mouth of the canyon, a valley has been carved into the seafloor by the flow of the sediment. This valley extends for almost 200 miles before it spills out onto the bottom of the deep ocean. Surprisingly, channels like this one can be found etched into seabeds all over the globe. Since the initial discovery of these rivers in the 1980s, others have been identified in the Amazon, off the coasts of Greenland, and in the Congo and Bengal regions as well. The largest underwater rivers stretch thousands of miles into the ocean and are typically several miles wide. In most instances, they provide important sustenance to the marine creatures living nearby. In a lot of ways, underwater rivers are very similar to the rivers we find on land. Those found beneath the surface still have banks on each side of them, and most of the time, smaller rivers feed into larger ones. They still shape the area around them, and they can even change course, which results in certain sections of the river being abandoned. And just like land rivers eventually spill into the ocean, underwater rivers flow into the abysmal plain in the deepest parts of the sea. Instead of fresh water or salt water, these rivers are filled with slurries of sand and silt, which cascades through deep channels along the seafloor. Each individual particle travels through the water under its own weight. Once an underwater river begins to form on the continental shelf, much like an avalanche, the sediment picks up speed over time and slowly gains momentum until it's flowing like a liquid. Unfortunately, learning about these rivers has proven extremely difficult for researchers given their immense depth. According to sedimentologist Dan Parsons from the University of Hull in the UK, compared to what we know about rivers that are found on land, we practically have no accurate measurements of the flowing rivers under the sea. The only effective way to study them is by specialized remote-controlled deep-sea submarines. And what makes research even more difficult is that these rivers don't flow all the time. Apparently, they can be inactive for years once a flow has passed. Another reason that not much else is known about these rivers is due to the expensive cost of utilizing the underwater research vessels. Just one day of use can cost upwards of $25,000. And so, instead of exploring the actual underwater rivers, many researchers mostly rely on computer-generated simulations. Would you rather discover a lost civilization submerged under the water, or discover a new species that you get to name whatever you'd like? Let us know what you think in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.